You'll have an opportunity to hear from some terrific speakers here to talk to you today about bridging AI, international policy and practice. I'm here from the Research Data Alliance Artificial Intelligence and Data Visitation Working Group. And with me today are my co-chair, Francis Crawley, my colleague Seonyoung Kim from Washington University. Online with a video will be Patricia Buendia. We also have with us Rodrigo Roa from Data Observatory and Madhava Jay from, say again how to pronounce? Open Mind. And we're glad you're here with us today. We'd like to acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we meet. And we pay our respect to their elders past, present, and future. We'd like to also welcome new members to the Research Data Alliance and the AIDV Working Group. There is a URL at the top of the slide that'll give you a little bit more information. If you're not familiar with RDA, it's free for individuals to join. We invite your participation and would like you to participate in the AIDV Working Group. Let's learn a little bit about the European Open Science Cloud Future, Research Data Alliance AIDV Working Group, and its core outputs. Francis and I have had the distinct pleasure of working with about 240 RDA members on the outputs that we'll highlight next. Among these, I'd like to highlight 4 endorsed recommendations from our working group that will be of interest to those of you here in the room. Those include guidance for ethics committees and institutional review boards reviewing artificial intelligence and data visitation projects. What we've encountered is that members of our ethics committees and IRBs may be on terms that have placed them on those committees, but have not had a background with any exposure to artificial intelligence or weighing the risks of AI inside research projects, and that additional education and support are necessary for these committees. Our group has created some guidance for improving those committees' experience for both the members of those committees and how they calculate and deal with risk in AI and data visitation impacted projects. Hopefully this will allow universities and research institutions to get rid of their backlogs, because IRBs and EOCs are backlogging with cases that their members are ill-equipped to handle. We also have guidance for informed consent in the context of artificial intelligence and data visitation. Sion will give you a little bit more information about that in her talk, so I won't get into it in detail here, but I invite you to visit that output online and perk your ears up when you hear Seonyoung tell us about putting it into practice. Next, I'd like to emphasize the guidance we have out on secure processing environments for open science, a proposal of legal foundations for those environments. This is an output crafted with all our membership on the AIDV, but in particular with input of attorneys who are both scholars and practitioners in and around the concerns of AI. And I think this legal foundations document will be of great interest to those of you who are trying to cooperate with your general counsel about the risks and opportunities of managing AI projects so they are not a liability for your institution and so that they do not cause undue need to consult with counsel regularly, but on a scheduled basis that you can predict, grow, and mature. And finally, the AI Bill of Rights recommendation. This is a recommendation for member organizations and organizations of any type on how to center human rights in AI governance. We believe, and you'll hear a little bit more in the talk by panelist Rodrigo Roa, about the essential nature of communities being able to govern AI and what works within their locality. This might mean the adoption of sovereign AI. This might mean the adoption of localized LLMs, for example. We also have a couple of other supporting outputs. One of those is a shared citation library related to all things artificial intelligence in DV. You're welcome to consult it any time. It's freely accessible and permissively licensed. And we also have a very recent Geographies of Trust, AI, Biomedicine in the Next Era of Federated and Visiting Data Models white paper that we'll be talking about a little bit during this morning's session, and that we invite you to read, make use of, and let us know how it works for you. Next up, I'm going to invite my co-chair, Frances Crawley, to the podium to talk to you a little bit about the shifting paradigm from data transfer to data visitation. Frances, you got about 5 minutes.
That's 2 more than you gave me originally. I don't need that, yeah. Thank you very much. Very first thing I want to say is, as Natalie said, we had a lot of people work on this. I was a co-chair together with Natalie. I did nothing. Natalie has done all the work. Actually, Natalie wasn't a co-chair originally, but we realized that Natalie was doing all the work, so she came in and she really, absolutely amazing. And even for this even today would not have come together without Natalie. But more than that, if there's more than Natalie, I'm not sure. But it's really, we had the most amazing people in the working group. Seriously, huh? Absolutely amazing people who worked really hard. And these documents that they've produced, these guidance documents and so forth, and it's from all over the world, really people all over the world that did this together. The other thing that we did also when we started the working group was we set up a kind of a fellows as well, so that we can bring young researchers into it. We could also bring people in who were less resourced. We put in some of the resources that we had. We had a lot of money, I think 10,000 euros, I don't remember, something like that. So we used it that way. Now we used it also to get them to RDA meetings and things. So we really wanted to stress with the people, but the people then came through. And what you see are PDFs, you see documents. I think they're excellent. Of course, I'm prejudiced, but really behind that are the people. And there are a lot of thinking and a lot of really original contributions to AI. These are the first global documents for AI in ethics, the first one for consent, the first one for ethics committees, even in a certain sense, the first one for human rights in a way. So it was a lot of struggle too, and we're doing it globally, and we're now seeing that these documents are also being implemented globally. And that's what's important for us here as well. With regard to the data visitation, we put AI and data visitation together in 2022. Data visitation really wasn't on the map then. And we struggled with it, we struggled to work with it. And then Natalie really together with Patty, especially Patty's lead, but together with Natalie, with Seonyoung, and a lot of other people too, people from Africa and so forth, they really gave us a proof of concept for data visitation that it works. And I have to thank Patty, like Patty's, the white papers that she's producing now, these additional guidances that Natalie said, these are really good things, and they're really at the cutting edge. So I'm extremely, and I did nothing. So what we are going to look at, partly at least today, is, and want to focus on, and also we originally wanted this to be like a birds of a feather working group for RDA. So we're also trying to figure out how we take this forward afterwards in a global way. Not just like a commercial way, not in a individual university way or something like that. We really want to take forward with you, I hope, and other people, we want to take forward how we can do this better. And we have people here who know more than we do, who can bring in bits and pieces that we can't bring into. We have to get involved with the data spaces people and things like that. So it's a complicated area, but I think we have really good people to do it in here. And basically, what we want to do is to make it possible to share data. I mean, that's what RDA is all about. That's really, that's a main category of RDA, besides this new way of doing science, this new way of doing community work, which is fantastic. how can we share data? How can we share, and then really what we have to think is, well, do we need to share the data? What we want to share is the value of the data. We want to share the information in the data. We want to be able to learn from the data, okay? So we have to look to make this possible. And by the way, it's not just us looking to make it possible here. It's like everybody out there on the street is looking how to make this possible as well. Companies are looking at how to make this possible. So it's not just us, maybe as academic researchers, that want this. Companies want this. They need it. And they want this even in the open science frameworks, because that facilitates it. And with 11 seconds left, governments want it. Governments want this terribly bad. How are we going to build the European health data space if we cannot, without data visitation, we will never do it? It's like, you think that the University of Leuven, where I live, is going to share data with the new University of Leuven that's French-speaking down the road. It ain't going to happen. Like, there's no forces in the world that's going to allow that to happen, right? So we have to facilitate that. We have to find a way to facilitate it. And these people will tell you how to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. I hope with that rousing introduction, you're thinking data visitation and AI. I'm going to tell you a little bit now about the data visitation for RDA Tiger project, where we were putting our RDA principles into practice. In this project, our aim was to bridge data silos and to protect patient and subject privacy within data sets. The solution was the DV for RDA project, directly aligning with RDA's mission to champion interoperability, reproducibility, and accessibility by providing a practical framework to address these hurdles. It's an embodiment of RDA's core principles. It's community-driven. It delivers value, producing a tangible, implementable project where the outputs are part of a practical data platform. It supports harmonization. Our computational to data model within the project aligns with data security and health data RDA working groups like our trusted research environments for sensitive and confidential data in RDA, the Health Data Commons, the GORC profile, our efforts in building immune digital twins, and more. What were the goals of the DV for RDA project? We created a framework for implementing data visitation technologies. We aim to demonstrate and evaluate data visitation in practice with a community of RDA volunteers and our partner at Lifetime Omics. We wanted to enhance data security and privacy by using data visitation technologies. We wanted to promote and assess the FAIR data principles along a continuum rather than a binary. We wanted to accelerate research by making quality data sets more easily findable and by being able to visit them with your algorithm rather than accessing them through data use agreements that came file by file. And finally, we wanted to do this in such a way that we were fostering global collaboration around data sets themselves. We recruited participants in the roles you see up on the screen. And here on this slide, you can see a little bit about how people participated. And in the colors, you can see the attention given to the kind of persons you need on a project of this type. Everyone from engineers, policy advisors, system security engineers, testers, online influencers, community managers, and outreach planners. So there's a lot of work here. And without the Tiger Cascade grant program and the support we got from Tiger, we never could have engaged with an RDA membership group and an industry partner in this way. So we were really appreciative of that grant, and we hope that our project is an exemplar for everyone in this community of how you can work toward common goals across communities like RDA and industry partners. We talked before about some of those actionable RDA outputs. They're here on the screen for you. And now what we're going to do is dig into some short talks where we can get into what it means to go from policy to practice within data providing organizations with the advice of expert practitioners, with the participation of industry partners, and I hope this will be enlightening for you. Each of these talks will take about 10 minutes, and next we're going to hear from Rodrigo Roa, Executive Director of the Data Observatory in Santiago, Chile. Rodrigo, come take the stand.
Thank you, Natalie. Hello, everyone. Oops. How do I? It's not using this one. Okay. Well, I am Rodrigo Roa. I'm the Executive Director of Data Observatory. First of all, we need to talk about what is Data Observatory, of course. So Data Observatory was born as a national project, a partnership between the government of Chile, Amazon Web Services, and Adolfo Ibáñez University to turn data into practice. The idea was simple, but bold. If data are a public good, then the state must do more than legislate. It must be enable access, quality, and reuse through concrete actions. Data Observatory operates as a non-profit institution with a public mission. It integrates government, academia, and the private sector to make large, complex datasets from astronomy, Earth observation, natural resources, and social sciences, making it accessible and reusable. It works under a hybrid model combining public funding, private infrastructure, and scientific expertise. Its guiding principle is trusted, curator, and fair data are the invisible infrastructure of digital development. This is a kind of new institution for our country. It has operative 3 years, and we needed to acquire, we are not data generators, so we need to subscribe several collaboration agreements. We need to subscribe MOUs with different actors, with different sectors, and the idea was to show how data is usable for policymakers and for researchers. So in these all fields that I just recently present, astronomy, Earth observation, social sciences, and natural resources, biodiversity, of course, there's a transversal idea, and it's the way that you treat data, it's the way that you present the information, and it's the way you build your infrastructures and platforms. So that's when everyone and in institutions in general around the world, we're talking about FAIR principles. And FAIR principles make a lot of sense when you're building this institution, when you're building operations, when you're building engineers of a team of engineers, and you want to make more valuable data sets. So in that matter, we noticed that there were several gaps in Chile between public sector, between academia, between industry, of course, and people were not aware of FAIR principles. So the plan was at that time to teach about FAIR and how you can improve data use, not only in a scientific matter, you can add it like public sector in order to make data more interoperable for the benefit of citizens. In that case, we showed that the problem really was that in our country, we have abundance of data. We're a natural laboratory. We have like 4,000 kilometers of ocean coast. We have most of the clearest skies in the planet. So it's really a fantastic and fascinating country. I invite you all to come. You can call me if you like, and I will be more than pleased to welcome you there. But the thing is, the data was very isolated at that time. And DO, Data Observatory, with other Chilean universities, developed this instrument that's a national FAIR strategy. The first public policy in Chile dedicated to interoperability and open governance of data. This strategy is built in the FAIR principles, and it established a national baseline for data standards, metadata, and licensing. This is how a policy becomes tangible through sustained collaboration between different institutions. Another project that shows how collaboration with minimum resources can improve the standards of South America, it's LatinGPT. LatinGPT is the first Latin American language, large model, trained with 2.6 million documents from over 21 countries in South America, and with the support of 30 institutions and more than 60 experts. The thing about LatinGPT is that it's a model that it's open and it's multilingual and rooted in our cultural and social diversity with a goal of 70 billion parameters, and it's going to be released this December. I hope that I can get into December with this launch because it's getting very, very complicated with some data sets. But the idea is, the hope is that. So Latin America is just not consuming technology. We're used to be users of technology, but nowadays with these projects, initiative that we've been developing in the past 2 years, we are now creating, we're developing innovation as a matter of fact. And it's not private. It's a collaboration joint between different governments, between technological centers, between researchers. So it's kind of an interesting thing that shows how community, when it's well aligned, could get best results. As Latin American Index, we have this, ILIA, it's its name. It's Latin American Index for AI. It shows that there's several differences in the country itself and in the region. The region nowadays, and this index was launched 2 weeks ago, and it's in a turning point at this time. According to ILIA, this Latin American Index, Latin America and the Caribbean are moving forward with a strong interest, but also deep asymmetries. Brazil and Chile lead the way, while countries such as Costa Rica, Ecuador, and the Dominican Republic are rapidly emerging. The challenge now is to move from enthusiasm to real investment, and from plans to implementation. Generative AI, and open source development are consolidated as the region's most powerful drivers of democratization. So what's Data Observatory mission with all this landscape? First of all, we need to have open and standardized data. And we think that that's very essential. Without FAIR principles, data has no real value. Collaboration, in my point of view, wins in this case. ILIA, this index, shows that the countries making progress are those that collaborate the most. Surdata, this initiative that aims to teach about FAIR principles, and LatinGPT are clear examples of that joint forces. The thing is, or for me, is to act now. The region has talent and diversity. What it lacks, it's urgency and coordination. Then we need two institutions like the Data Observatory as a catalyst bridging data, talent, and vision. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias a todos.
Thank you. I'd like to invite you all, if you have questions now for Rodrigo about LatamGPT, ILIA, Surdata, or the DO itself, we can welcome questions at this time that are specific to what Rodrigo has brought up. Any questions? Raise your hand and we can run a mic to you. Please.
Rodrigo, thank you for your presentation. I'm Gitanjali Yadav from India. We are trying to develop similar models in India, particularly for things like Ayurveda, which we believe is strongly national for us. What I'm wondering is, did you have to work with a huge number of NVIDIA chips and so on? What kind of infrastructure did you need to use for building the GPT? We expect at least hundreds of, if not thousands of GPT cores. I mean the NVIDIA A100, at least 8 A100 cores. What kind of stuff, interest did you have?
Yeah, very good question. as I said, and I'm joking with Natalie, I'm not the data guy, I'm the observatory guy.
Oh.
But I can answer that in more general aspects.
Yes.
Maybe the more technical,
Yes.
I can send it to you later. But we are partners with AWS, so we work with NVIDIA GPUs. But it's difficult because the way that we are processing all this data, it's all text documents. And it depends on the availability of resources that AWS has. So I can assure you which kind of GPUs or processing we are using at this time, because it's in high demand, all the capacity.
Yes.
So I think I will get your question, I do my homework, and I will
need to
tell-
immediately
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for your
Thank
question.
you.
by the way.
Any more questions for Rodrigo? One back here.
Okay, no, thank you. Kagiso Maibi here from Johannesburg, South Africa. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Mine is more from a practical standpoint. I don't know if you have the answers to these questions. How big is the working group on this? That's the first one. The reason I'm asking that's because, I mean, in South Africa we have 11 official languages. So building, you know, a GPT for the South African context, if I can sort of get a ballpark figure and then kind of conceptualize in my head what would be required for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Well, this project is led by the National Center for AI, and we are collaborating in the building the infrastructure and the pre-training and training of all the data that is going to be used in the model. So there are several teams working, one of the DO that built infrastructure, then the engineering team also from the Observatory that it's preparing all the CPUs, GPUs. That group is formed by 5 engineers, but the guys at the National Center for AI are about 20 more. And we have 60 experts around the region, South America, that are helping us in different aspects. One of them is to get available data sets to be open. The idea of this model is to be, the code will be open, and the data that it's used to train the model is supposed, the hope is to be as open as possible. And so there are many counterparts in all South America working in aspects like licensing or authorization of the data that is going to be used. So I think the team, it's more than 60, maybe 80 people are working in different aspects, in different areas. And also it has a group of ethical approach. Once the fine-tuning of the model starts. And one of the things that I didn't say is that the model is not going to be released with an interface. It's going to be in a Hugging Face kind of thing. So only experts can train and use the model at the beginning. Then we are going to develop the interfaces, the app maybe. But the idea is to create a model that works, and it's trained with regional documents, books, arts, recognizing culture, recognizing the most native people, languages from the region, because in Chile, we speak differently than any other South American countries, and we all have different slang. So same words don't mean the same in every country, so you need to train them differently. And it takes a lot of will, more than money, to develop this idea. And to conclude my answer is that every model is trained with, sometimes as we've been hearing now in this conference, with a lot of garbage data. So the idea, I hope, of course, is to create that data to make it transparent and reliable in order to avoid biases and hallucinations. But it's a work in progress now.
We have a request for a question from Francis. Francis, do you have a mic or do you need one?
Francis, I'm Narendra Mehra. I'm from the Indian National Science Academy. I chair the National Committee on Core Data in India. You talked about huge amount of data in biomedicine. Of course, I belong to the health field. And we saw that in 2020 and 21, 22, huge amount of the data coming up on COVID. We were having about 100 to 200 publications every day. And one had to sit at the edge of the seat to really understand that. And that time, of course, we were not aware of the data sharing and things of that sort. How do you feel? Because now this similar thing is happening in the field of climate change, impact of climate change on health. And I'm sure in the next few years, we're going to have voluminous data on this. How do we handle such kind of situations?
No, thank you for that. Honestly, this group, this AIDV group, started in a way before RDA, but RDA saved it in a way. Because I was, during COVID, at the very beginning of COVID, I was part of this group in Europe where there was somebody in Germany who had a data visitation tool. And we were trying to get that picked up because we wanted to be able to share the data, as everybody did. But it wouldn't work because nobody understood then DV, data visitation. And then I joined RDA, like at the same time, and they were working on data sharing for COVID, and actually they did a lot of very good things there. And I learned so much from them. So then and by the way, I have to mention Ryan here, who is our facilitator and who, together with Natalie, makes this work. It was really with the RDA platform that gave us a platform to start to work on this and to think about it and to do it in a global way, not just with there's a few guys, frankly, from Europe and the US that were trying to do it, but we couldn't get it accepted. And so that's really where it started now. And then, fortunately, with CoData, you're part of, within our IDPC working group, we started this idea of data policies for times of crisis, which is just focused on data. So our next step has to be to integrate the AIDV part into this data policies when we start to pilot these policies into real life. That's what we're thinking about there. So yes, public health emergencies, climate change and so forth.
That's my second question. You made a remark on the RDA guidelines for ethics boards and the IRBs and all that. And we are now beginning to see queries coming up on AI and DV there. So those guidelines are still there? I mean, are they still developing, or are they in use?
Just to be short, if I can, Natalie, please. Yeah, so actually, I think last week, we had a discussion with Indonesia to implement them in Indonesia. Tonight, I have a discussion with Saudi Arabia with the National Institutes of Health there to discuss it as well. So we continually we have to now, again, we only have PDFs, no excitement there. We have to put them into reality. And we have to put them into real institutional change. One more thing just on this. The ethics committees that we have today around the world, let's say here in Australia, the health research ethics committees or the IRBs in the US or the research ethics committees in the UK or whatever, they're not built for the purposes that we need. They're built for health. They're built to do clinical trials, specifically to do clinical trials, even. So they're not built to deal with the kind of work that we need. So we also tried to talk to the RDA leadership, the CoData leadership, to also find ways to reform ethics review and bring in a new way of doing ethics review. And I think our guidelines are really a good foundation to build on. Natalie, sorry to go on, but thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you for that terrific question. And in short, the AIDV recommendations for IRBs and committees on ethics has been council endorsed by the Research Data Alliance as part of the working group process, thanks to Ryan and the rest of the team at RDA. Those are released on the output page of the AIDV working group and on Zenodo. So you'll be able to find them and pick them up. They're permissively licensed for exactly this reason. So people will use them and put them into practice. Next, we're going to hear from Seonyoung Kim, my colleague from Washington University, St. Louis in the United States. Seonyoung will talk to us from her perspective as an expert practitioner about putting policy into practice in compliance for data visitation. Seonyoung.
Thank you.
That's your advance.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the introduction. There are lots of active discussions. Actually, one of the slides she showed has all 4 recommendations in the link. So if you access the slide, you can access from there as well. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I'm a data librarian. So I do a lot of consultation on data management and sharing, and also curate data set for our institutional data repository. Thanks. So I see in many cases, we have a lot of sensitive data, and they're kind of locked up behind the wall, meaning people cannot, openly access, so they have to sign a data user agreement, oftentimes requiring institutional signature. So barrier is really high. So even if they want to access the data, they have to jump through this hoop. So how can we lower that barrier? So data visitation sounds like an option, so that's how I got interested. And FAIRIyz on top of it kind of gives you a way to improve metadata. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the RDA Principles. We emphasize make data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. But what people often neglect is data analyzable. So FAIRIyz LYZ is the 5th element of that part. So it's data analyzable. So what this company did is take the data, existing data, and using the data visitation technology, and then see if the data is analyzable. Is the annotation sufficient to be used? Because people can't see the data, so they don't know what's, they go through all this trouble, download the data, and they can use it, so that's pretty, traumatic. So anyway, so that's how I got involved. I'm going to move forward. So this use case focuses on policy and compliance with data visitation, specifically how to apply AIDV guidance in IRB protocols and informed consent forms. The goal is to show how we can put AIDV principles into practice through practical, regulatory-ready language that protects participant privacy and supports responsible data use. What is data visitation and why adopt it? So traditional data sharing often means transferring sensitive data sets to external servers, which introduces security and compliance risks. Data visitation, on the other hand, is reverse the model. Instead of moving the data, you bring the analysis tools to where the data already lives. This approach aligns with the privacy laws like HIPAA and GDPR and supports NIH data management and sharing policies and genomic data policy, sharing policy as well. It's a practical way to reduce risk, protect participants' privacy, and maintain trust while still enabling AI-driven research and collaboration. So when adding data visitation language to an IRB protocol, it's best to integrate into existing sections rather than creating new ones. In data collection, these are a few places where you can put that language. So in data collection and management section, describe where the data will stay and that DB methods are used for analysis. In confidentiality and privacy section, emphasize the individual level data never leaves the secure environment. Reference this again in the data analysis plan and storage sections. Together, these details will frame DB as a risk mitigation strategy, showing the IRB that you are reducing the risk, not adding it. Informed consent. So this is guidance for informed consent in AI and data visitation. Informed consent should help participants understand how their data will be handled when AI or remote analysis tools are involved. The AIDV working group emphasizes flexibility. Consent should enable autonomy, not restricted. As Dr. Christy Heckett from McMaster University put it, a reconsideration of the classic forms of informed consent is necessary in light of AI. We need to support autonomy through practical, flexible consent and mechanisms. This captures what we're aiming for, consent that is realistic, transparent, and adaptable to new data visiting technologies. And this slide builds on the AIDV working group's new guidance for informed consent in the context of AI and data visitation published earlier this year. It's one of the recommendations. It emphasized that traditional one-time consent model no longer fits the realities of AI and data visitation, where data used in analysis continue to evolve over time. Instead, the guidance promotes dynamic consent, an ongoing adaptable process that lets the participants stay informed and adjust their preferences as the research progresses. So we mentioned two different models, and that will be implemented in the data visitation platform, not in the paper form I'm going to talk about. So, and then I put the reference in there. So if you, there's a lot more details in this document, so I highly recommend you to check it out. And data visitation in informed consent form, this is a practical paper form in a way, because you cannot start any human-derived study without the IRB protocol in place, informed consent in place. So this is a plain language that we recommend you put in the informed consent so participants can understand what they're getting into. So emphasize your data stays where it is. We bring approved tools to it for analysis, and only safe de-identified results leave. Why it matters? Because it minimizes unauthorized access and builds trust. So clear wording like this strengthens trust and shows the study values of privacy from the start. And this is an example of how FAIRIyz does like informed consent, per subject informed consent verification during QC. So during the DV4 RDA project, we also guided the implementation of a method that follows the FAIR principles to verify the informed consent of every study participant by using standard ontologies. Patty's FAIRIyz demo won't go into that level of detail, so I'm showing you this one slide, how FAIRIyz uses the informed consent ontology, ICO, during QC check, similar to how dbGaP, which is the human subject genomic data repository, requires consent information for data sharing. So FAIRIyz uses the ICO classes to annotate the verified consent given by each participant. Now, this final slide brings it all together. The new IRB and consent language provide a clear framework for compliant data visitation, something institutions can adopt immediately. It supports NIH DMS, GDS policies, HIPAA and GDPR standards, while allowing ethical AI analysis that respects participant autonomy. Our call to action is for RDA members and institutions to use and share this guidance in their own templates and policies. With that, I'm open to questions.
Harun Ahmad here from the Australian Research Council. Look, my question is not going to be technical, it's more policy question. Just thinking about it from a practical perspective, you have to convince somebody that this is the way to go data visitation. For example, if you're talking to a university to give us access to the data. Has there been any research or a bunch of research which is credible, which proves that this method is more secure than, let's say, them giving us an API access, which which essentially, has there been any research on the security aspect of it? How do you convince a data provider that by bringing a tool, which could be multiple contact points with their data source, versus a one-time data transfer process? How do you convince them this is a more secure method, is my question.
So I don't think there's a published, research on the security of data vision technology. By the way, this is a new technology evolving. But we did publish a journal paper comparing 3 different technologies: federated visitation, data visitation, and centralized data visitations. We have a comparison chart, and we have a Excel spreadsheet comparing all different forms, and there are pros and cons. But DV comes out high in terms of security in a way, because you're not moving the data, you just bring the tools. And all the other ones, you actually have to take them out of the secure environment. And the other advantage is, since you're performing the analysis there, it's dynamic, it's live, as recent as you can get, if there's any changes to the data. Versus if you download, then it becomes a little outdated in a way. So I recommend you to read the paper, because it does describe all the pros and cons and features of each technology. And we'll keep looking for any research coming out, but at the moment, I'm not aware of any formal publication.
So I just want to add to what you say. It's a really good question, because what that project was also really concerned with was the establishment of a secure environment. So we all know about these secure research environments and so forth, trusted research environments say. We know this is a key area to do it in here. What I want to highlight is these people met like every week for months on a Friday afternoon, Belgium time anyway, to do this. And they actually tested this inside out, backwards and forwards, in very small environments to work on here. One other thing I wanted to add to your question, because it's your question here, is the way legislation works today for legislating data, it actually legislates the transfer of data. It doesn't legislate code to data. So this is a really interesting question. It's also a huge problem, because if you want to work in an environment where there's no legislation, well, nobody wants to work in that environment, because then, almost by definition, it's not secure. People want a regulated environment to work in. It's strange, but they want it. I've seen it so many times in the pharmaceutical world. So they need a legislated environment. Like, for example, the pharmaceuticals in phase 1, they're not legislated. So people phase 0, people won't do phase 0 studies because they're not regulated. And this is going to be the same problem we have here. So it's also an additional problem there. Sorry.
I forgot to mention one thing. So during the FAIRIyz, evaluation, so there's a secure. I did mention only approved tools will access the data. So it's not just a random tool. So we actually went through the steps to make sure FAIRIyz is compliant with the NIST 800-171, which is the highest security standard. So there's a part that makes sure this data visiting tool is secure and compliant. So there's a security portion of it, which you will capture when we publish the white paper.
Yeah, that's excellent information. I think that's where my mind was going to as well. Like, the touch point really depends on the tool that you bring in. So if the tool is vetted, you ensure that that's, but I mean, then if you're explaining it to senior execs, all they think about is data is like a box, and the more touch points you have, the more chance of it being hacked. And so that was where my question was, is there any research on the fact that, there are more touch points, but if it's a secure service, it doesn't mean there is more risk. It's just using it. I mean, that's where research comes in handy, where you can show something to a senior execs who are time poor, and they can see it and go, okay, this is what you mean.
Right. So I think emphasis should be approved tools, which should be compliant. Yeah.
Christina Drummond, University of North Texas. So this is all really exciting stuff, and just to build on that, I think what we're talking about is risk mitigation And obviously there are cybersecurity standards we can point to, ISO 2700 class, et cetera. I'm really curious, though, in the pilot with FAIRIyz, if you got to a point where you were also creating an audit log, because one of the things that I've heard is very important is at each point of the code accessing the data for a specific person, there is some record that could be auditable to prove that there was informed consent for that specific API, execute environment, what have you, authorized by a specific person. And so I don't know in the pilot if that was explored, how there is kind of record keeping, if you will, of the informed consent, not only by an individual, but by the application.
So my understanding is that audit trail exists in the secure environment itself. They will check in all the visiting tools, so not necessarily in the analysis tool that are visiting the data. That's my understanding, but Patty is not here to explain the technical details, so I will relate to her, and then maybe she can follow up with you.
Natalie, can I just say to what Christina said as well? Consent is a huge problem now because of the GDPR, I would say. Even. The GDPR made consent a problem. It shouldn't have done it, but it did it. And consent is not even a legal basis. It is one of the 6 legal bases, right? But it's not a legal basis for health data. This is insane, right? So it's not only going to be consent, just keep that in mind. It's going to be whatever lawful basis is decided on. So this is a complex world. Yeah. We have another question too there, I think. Yeah.
I was just going to say, and I'm glad you brought that up, Francis, because I think there's a meta conversation here that maps to, are we shifting from open to sovereign? Because the complexity of those local laws by region, by community, by type of data is just complex. And so our ability to ensure that we can provide transparency to how we're meeting those requirements is something that I think we still need to research and figure out.
Just to respond to that, the audit trailing, the systems that I work with, the secure research environments, everything is audit trailed when health data moves into that system. So that is a pretty standard off-the-shelf technology that you can get. So I'm Priyanka. I work at the University of Melbourne. My research has mainly been in the area of health and infectious diseases. Just to add to the point of multiple touch points for the data, something that I'm curious about is cross-institutional and cross-sectoral governance that determines the infrastructure that you use for data visitation. So an example of that is the way we operate at the University of Melbourne. If we're working on clinical research projects, we often work with the hospital. So the hospital, the university, and the infrastructure provided by the university is leveraged for a collaborative project that we do on data analysis, could be ICU data or anything. The governance often comes up as a very tricky problem to navigate. And yes, the person or the organization that provides the infrastructure is responsible for the infrastructure. And if there is a data breach, they have their own mechanisms in place. And that's why audit trailing is in place, right? But often the responsibility, the shared responsibility is not well documented. So is that something you've considered as a part of data visitation, the governance that sits on top of the infrastructure, the secure infrastructure?
Based on my personal experience at our institution, typically IRB will approve aggregate summary data to be shared openly, but not individual participant data, even though it's de-identified. Since data visitation does not move any data out of there, so we don't have to worry about this regulation. It's kind of data without the border, so we keep the data there. But the aggregated data is more kind of allowable for open access, so that's what this technique will take with. So I think we can, that's how we handle it, but if there's a further regulation that even kind of touch on the aggregate summary data, then we might have to revisit.
Let me put it this way. What we're doing is looking for a solution that these institutions and governments, for the problem that these institutions and governments created for themselves. That's what Christina is working on here with the health data spaces in Europe, the European Commission is actually asking them to solve the problem that they made so they can have the health data space. And that's what data visitation is trying to do. It's trying to solve this problem, I think.
Thank you all. I really appreciate these thoughtful and insightful questions. They lead us to what is our next work together. And RDA is a great place to take up these questions within the context of working groups like the one we had. We can pick a problem just like the ones we just heard, explore it together, move forward to alignment with standards, national and international, but also with the progress of law in our various countries and domains. Next up, our industry partner, Lifetime Omics, with the FAIRIyz tool that was part of DV for RDA, can't be with us in person. So we have prepared a couple videos to share with you about the tool and how it was enhanced through participation with DV for RDA. I'd like to thank Patty Buendia from Lifetime Omics for her participation in that Tiger project and for allowing RDA to influence the feature set in that tool as an experiment about putting policy into practice. Next up, you can visit these videos also later on your own time, but we're going to play them here for you today as a group with help from my friends in the back.
Hello RDA and AIDV Working Group. My name is Patricia Buendia. Some of you may know me from working together on the Tiger Cascade DV for RDA project, which Francis, Natalie, and Seonyoung already introduced earlier. Before we dive into the DV for RDA related features in this presentation and a demo of FAIRIyz, let's quickly revisit what our platform is designed to tackle. FAIRIyz focuses on solving critical challenges that emerge in two key scenarios: when AI systems access or utilize data for analysis, and when AI is employed to clean, organize, or curate data also for analysis. These are challenging tasks because of data access barriers and data silos and the complexity of data curation, especially in biomedical research. In our proposed solution, our platform FAIRIyz applies data visitation to prepare scientific data sets for responsible, fair data sharing and AI readiness. And this is how we do it. FAIRIyz reframes data sharing as a process focused on delivering high-quality, usable data, as you can see in this graph. During the DV for RDA project, we had an incredible group of participants from around the world who tested these features, focusing on the data visitation quality control component, which also uses AI. FAIRIyz is beneficial for numerous stakeholders. Just to name a few: researchers, data managers, research institutes, data libraries, data repositories, journals, scientific funders, and other entities that need a measure of data quality before engaging with the data. I know from personal experience as a researcher how time-consuming and frustrating it can be to go through the process of getting access to data only to find it is not usable. And here's a look at what is coming next. We're upgrading FAIRIyz based on the feedback we received during the DV for RDA project with a new AI chatbot feature, friendlier user interface, and enhanced security. We're also focused on growing the community. As part of our effort to grow the FAIRIyz community, we're currently in discussions to apply FAIRIyz to a mental health research project, which will involve tailoring the platform to handle new types of data. We're excited about this direction and actively welcome similar collaborations to bring FAIRIyz to your institution's scientific data resources. Now let's take a look at some of the new features with a FAIRIyz demo. Welcome to the FAIRIyz Data Registry, where you'll find a curated list of public studies from across the FAIRIyz community. Each study is tagged with metadata, quality scores, and access options, making it easy to explore and evaluate. Now, let's head to my dashboard, the personalized space where I manage my own studies as a researcher. For example, this hospital study of resistance to antibiotics is currently undergoing QC review. I can review and update the study information, data, and standardized metadata as seen here. Let's take a closer look at the data itself in the data overview page. Here, each dataset is represented as a card organized by type. The demographics data also contains the patient consent information, which is a feature added during the AIDV policy implementation. Each card shows key details obtained during data visitation. And here it is, the freshly upgraded and reimagined data visiting FAIRIyz QC interface. You see it is running on my local machine. If you've used the previous version, you'll immediately notice the visual improvements. We are also adding powerful new AI functionality, including a built-in AI chatbot assistant to guide you through the data QC evaluations. For example, here, I ask a question and learn that I need to select 3 files. And if you don't have all of them, the tool will generate the files for you. For this demo, we'll select 3 files. As you can see, the system automatically detects the correct file types and organizes them into the appropriate slots. I can change this one by one or approve all selections at once. Then I choose the date when the study observations were collected and run Dictionary QC to generate a comprehensive shareable report. This process validates the structure, formatting, and alignment between the data dictionary and the actual dataset. The process also generates a quality control score, which measures the data's integrity and readiness for analysis. Next, we run Mapping QC, which generates a QC report along with summary statistics. You can then validate the annotated information from all evaluations and apply corrections where necessary. The Mapping QC report highlights clinical data-dependent checks that were executed and flags any anomalies, such as an outlier error. In this case, the summary statistics will suggest that the outlier might stem from hospital patient data falling outside the expected clinical range, like here, pulse oximetry. The final step is to sync these QC results with the main registry and notice the privacy notice, reminding us that all processing happens locally on your computer. Back in the main registry, we can open the card for data that we just visited and QC'd and see the results that are available to other FAIRIyz users in the central registry. We're currently preparing a training data set for our AI chatbot using resources we created during the DV for RDA project, such as the detailed frequently asked questions and enhanced user guides and new test data sets. Stay tuned to be among the first to explore our updated AIQC chatbot once it's available.
Thank you, everyone, for your attention to that demonstration. Because Patty couldn't be with us today, what I will do is invite you to visit the slides in our shared program area and to explore the benefits of infrastructures for secure data visitation and the AIDV's secure processing legal recommendations that are available on the AIDV working group page. Next up, we're going to look into Patty's call to action that she showed briefly in her slide deck. If this is you, please reach out through the AIDV or directly to Patty at Lifetimeomics. We're going to hold questions about FAIRIyz since Patty isn't here. But if you would like to submit them as correspondence, we'll make sure they get to her. And if the panel is able to answer those questions after our next presentation, as part of our general question series, we're happy to do that too, between those of us who are here today. Next up, we have Madhava Jay, who's going to talk to us about Syftbox, a product of Open-Minded. Madhava, can you join me at the podium?
Hello. Welcome to my talk, Syftbox, a general purpose solution for data visitation and equitable data sharing. My name is Madhava Jay. You can just call me Jay. I'm a rare disease patient. I'm a software engineer at OpenMind, and I'm here to help solve data access with open source software. I also come from Brisbane. OpenMind has a mission to build the public network for non-public information. We were founded in 2017. We're a tech non-profit, 501c3, and we build open source privacy preserving technologies. We have over 30 team members, globally distributed, 230 GitHub repos, and a thriving Slack community of nearly 20,000 people. You can see here in this diagram, that's kind of where we're all located globally, and that's the amount of code that we write in a single year. Over the years, we've done a number of exciting pilots with different governments and large organizations. Last year, we did a world first with the UK AI Safety Institute and Anthropic by putting private evaluations and a private model into a secure enclave and GPU enclave, and it was a bit of a world first and very exciting. We've worked with Reddit. We've done a secure join between Microsoft and Dailymotion. We actually worked with the Christchurch call. It's not on this diagram, but with Jacinda Ardern and Macron to combat violent hate speech online using pets. And we also work with the UN Pet Lab, who's been working to try to get member nations together with their national statistics officers to link them with data joins. And I think most recently, Brazil has actually published and been to conferences with some of the work we've done with them, and they've actually loaded real private government data into the system. So it's exciting. If you want to check out more of that stuff, just go to openmind.org and you can read all about it. In this lightning talk, I want to cover three main things. One, problems with data sharing. Two, a general purpose solution. And three, a use case that uses that for equitable genomics. And so one way to think about the motivating problem here is that data's true power comes from collaboration. But many data owners are forced to choose between giving up data ownership through copying and centralization or simply not participating. Due to legal and ethical constraints, copying data across borders is often unacceptable, resulting in no action. We need a new way to collaborate fairly and securely. For people in the audience who aren't familiar, this term data visitation or remote data science, it sort of looks something like this. You know, you have your private data within your data site, which can be in an organization or government or academia. And then you have somebody outside of it, that may be a data scientist who wants to study it, answer a question, and they're able to send in the computation. The computation runs locally within the on-prem or cloud. And most importantly, the governance is still maintained and only the result is shared. If you take that and you sort of put it out across multiple data sites, you get what most people will refer to as federated learning. And importantly, there are many different ways to do federated learning, but in this case, we're talking about a truly distributed version, non-centralized. So OpenMind has been working on this stuff for years, and we've built multiple iterations of this technology. We had an older version called PySift. It was very specific to Jupyter notebooks and Python and such, deep learning use cases. And what we found over the years is that there's a variety of needs and problems that different people have, whether it's the US Census Bureau in America, Anthropic, this kind of different people with data problems, private data problems. What we've had to do is go down the stack and basically build something that's a little bit more kind of, infrastructure. So Syftbox is an Apache 2.0 open source project. It's end-to-end encrypted. It's a permissionless network. That means you can start a relay server. You can run a client. You can build applications on it. We don't stop you. We actually encourage you. You can run any data format because it's a bytes transfer. You can run any program or code, and it enables federated analysis across multiple data sites. It's low latency, and it has large file support. Check it out on the GitHub repo. I'm just going to move a bit faster. Biovault.net is a free and open source permissionless network for collaborative genomics. I said at the start I was a rare disease patient. This one's kind of personal for me. So what we want to do is solve some of these problems. Genomic data is private and it's very sensitive. And researchers face lengthy requests and institutional reviews. And as you can see, there are many of the same problems that we discussed earlier that happen in genomics. Our solution is essentially to apply data visitation to genomics. So we allow data owners to make their data available for remote analysis without uploading or exposing the raw data. And because we built this on Syftbox and Nextflow, researchers can easily run arbitrary analysis and complex data pipelines across the network.
Okay, the machine on the left is in my office with my personal data on it, and I've just published it to the network. And then on the right-hand side, I'm going to look at that, and I'm going to create a test project called iColor. And we're going to look at that in VS Code and see that it's just basic Nextflow and Python code, but it can be anything you want. We're now going to submit that to the other system by using my email address. And we'll see it appear on the left-hand side, and we can go inside and run it on test data and see that it's successful. And then I'm going to run it on my real data by putting my name in there. And now we can see that I have 55 reads of that allele. This is iColor test. I'm going to approve it, which sends it back to the other machine. And then we can see it's arrived, and we can read that email and see the location, open it up on my local computer, and we'll see that that is the result that was released. Thanks for watching.
So what I forgot to mention in that slide, the demo, was that there's no central server. There's a relay server that sends end-to-end encrypted data. That was a raw file in my home NAS box, and so just last thing I wanted to say was we're currently working with some pilot programs with Dr. Karika Weldon in Bermuda, with the founder of Kerry Genetics, and Dr. Rana Dajani in Jordan. We're helping them to enable to participate in genomics and derive equitable benefits they wouldn't otherwise be able to. And we're also partnering with the Human Genome Project too to help deliver infrastructure and capacity building in genomics. So we're looking for partners and pilots. As I said before, we're on a mission to deliver equitable access to data. It's open source, it's free. We want a digital public good. We have resources to help solve your data access problems. Come talk to me afterwards. The iColor test says that I don't have brown eyes, so you can verify that yourself if you want. That's my email address, and there's some QR codes if you want, but check it out. Thank you very much.
So I just want to add to what you presented, Zvana. Thank you very much. I didn't know him until Monday, right? So we have, coming out of this DV project, there's also a Human Genome Project too that started. And I'm part of an LC working group there, and your colleague Dawn from Harvard, they participated, Shyamo, in the webinar we did on data visitation for genomics in Africa. And after that, they just went back to the drawing board and put this thing together based on the work you've already done and running this stuff here too. So I really, Dawn is online as well. And they are really very enthusiastic. But we had a problem. Last night we had a meeting with the LC working group of HTTP2. We have a problem because to do the work that we want to do in HTTP2 is we have to do large population studies across boundaries. And particularly we have to do it in low middle income countries or something like that. So that's where we want to do it anyway. So in order to do that, in order to do those very fundamental studies that are needed to, let's see, bring our knowledge in the human genome to another level, we need to be able to compare data across large populations, across borders too. This is also what's needed to do the capacity building too. So bringing these tools here, that thanks to RDA and so forth, and also to CODATA with its data policy group, we try to really find ways to solve the problems to go across borders here. And what Natalie is bringing with the whole group here, and what Patty's bringing and so forth, and Rodrigo and so forth, Seonyoung, is we're bringing trying to bring different ways to bring this together and find out how to go through this first. We're not there yet. All of us know that. We're like far away, but we think we're on a good path, and if we get some good people to help us, we might get a little bit further even. Yeah. Natalie, you're the boss. Yeah.
We hope you have questions because we have about 12 more minutes where you have access to this terrific panel. Literally, the floor is yours. To everyone who has stuck with us this far, we appreciate your attendance in this session. And the mics are wandering the floor. Here we've got one.
Hi, Vanessa McBride from the International Science Council. Thank you. These are really interesting case studies for the state of visitation. I was going to ask if you run into issues on, compute power on your data sites and how you manage those.
I'm going to ask Madhava to respond because their solution is unique in the way that it's responsive to that question.
Sorry, can I just hear that again? You said, have we ran into problems with compute? So the system's designed to be flexible such that you can bring your own compute. It depends on whether you want to use cloud or on-prem. The pilots that we've been doing are fairly small scale compared to, say, large clusters or everything. But yeah, there's nothing preventing that from being utilized. I can go into more detail if you're interested.
So a question from the other side. So when you, in data visitation, maybe it's a question for Jay because you do this kind of work. If you need the data to be modified for the purposes of analysis, how does that work in practicality? Like if I'm visiting a server and that data is not in a format that I needed, how do I modify it?
Do you mean like ETL, putting it into the format that you wanted in? So, I mean, you can either go through the process of standardization, a bit like what was shown before, or, we have a sort of paradigm in remote data science that allows you to do iterative process, like in a Jupyter notebook, to be able to kind of explore a remote object. And that can allow you to actually do a sort of, instead we called it remote data science rather than visitation, because you're not visiting once, you're sort of visiting continuously. To do that, what we do is we actually create a thing called a twin, which has a real and a mock object. And so as you interrogate with commands like show me the length of the object or give me the properties of this object or run this function in Jupyter Notebooks, it will execute it against the mock, and then it will send the command across, and you can execute it against the real, and they can release that information. It's quite complex to do this in real time, but there are paradigms that allow you to add differential privacy and output protection noise to the output so that you can still reveal things such as like the approximate length of a tensor. Was that too much detail? Or?
So I don't know your tool so well yet, so I apologize, but what they were doing with the DV for RDA group too was also looking at the quality of the data. So making a quality assessment of the data. And I think, am I correct to say, Seonyoung? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
We're not analyzing it, we're improving the metadata quality. So FAIRIyz is unique, so we're not actually analyzing. So it's a registry in a way. So we visit and then kind of do the QC check, and you can get a score, and you can improve it. So it's a metadata enhancement, annotation enhancement tool in a way, not like what they're doing. So we're not doing analysis using this tool. We're just using data visitation to visit and enhance the metadata quality, and then put it back to the registry. Information, in a way, yeah.
I think we need both of these things going on. Probably you already, I know you thought about this already, but I'm not up to speed with you yet. But yeah, I think it's a complex area for sure. But I think we start to find, incrementally, we start to take steps towards finding that solution. And we're not the only guys on the block. There's other people out there too. Christina could talk about more about that as well. But we're starting to move. We start to see how we can solve these problems in order to do the science we want to do, and still do it within the legal, ethical frameworks in which we want to do. And I think this idea of also using AI, using these systems to do quality, not just organizing and arranging data and doing the FAIR principles and things like that, but actually doing the quality control on the data. This is a really critical aspect. Because if you want science, you want good outcomes. Ryan behind you there, Shyama.
Thanks very much, colleagues. I think great work. You are pioneers. You are the tip end of the spear. I'm thinking a lot of countries have done open data readiness assessments to look at the potential, for example, open government. What will be the recommendations and requirements on their side for them to be data visited ready? They have resources of data that they want to expose, in simple terms.
So the question is, what should a country consider to be data visitation ready?
Yeah, or institutions or whatever, yeah.
Just to say, Shyama's very much, especially recently with Botswana, they're trying to make an open government data foundation here. So I think that's part of his background to this question.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of people to speak to about that would definitely be some of the people we've worked with in the UN, because they're very much focused on cross-border collaboration, particularly in the stats department. And I think that's a great inroad because it's data, statistics, but it's also much simpler data than big data. And so I think initially setting up infrastructure within that country that can run open software and making sure that you have the right policies in place to allow pilot programs. I will say one thing. I hear that regulatory sandboxes are really important, and so there are a couple of places. I hear in, I think Singapore has one, and possibly, lots of hands up there, allows people to explore and experiment with these technologies without the fear of suddenly getting in trouble because of data leaks, etc.
So Christina, because I think Christina could speak to this question as well, and then there's one over there.
I'm not sure I have an answer explicitly because it's also tied to a question I have for the group. So Christina Drummond, University of North Texas, and I also just want to note, so you've heard mention of data spaces. We have a session tomorrow at 1 p.m. on what data spaces are and how they map to this, because that is another systemic approach to managing data visitation. And I think there's a question here, and I really like that we're showcasing some of these innovative platforms that are using data visitation. I'm curious from your perspective, what the right level of, like, where are the shared services and where is the stuff that makes sense to do on the edge in your own services and platforms? Because as we think of the people here at the RDA, there's this question of, you know, where should we centralize, where should we standardize? Because otherwise, each of your organizations are trying to bring up a service and do everything upstream. And so I'm curious, in your perspective, you know, so data spaces could happen at the national level, they can happen at an industrial level, and they can be very niche specific. And we've heard between these two platforms, you know, a lot of variety. So given your experience with your pilots, where do you think there might be opportunities for shared services upstream to support data visitation so that you can innovate and work nimbly?
Yeah, so one thing I'm aware of is depending on the particular use case, you may need to actually aggregate or bring data together. So for example, you know, a model and a query within a GPU. And at that point, you cannot be truly decentralized. You need to temporarily centralize the data. That use case, you know, we usually refer to as a secure enclave. But it can also be a trusted third party. And that's what you're talking about, which is that you say, for example, between an academic institution, you could say, well, the government is going to run those computers in their cluster and we trust them. But there are circumstances where there is no true trusted third party. So for example, in the, or it's very close to not having one, in the Anthropic and the UK AI Safety Institute pilot we did, neither party wanted to reveal their information to each other. So the evals need to remain private, biosecurity risk, and the model needs to remain private because it's commercial and very valuable. In those circumstances, somebody needs to still run the infrastructure, but it really needs to get down to the technicalities of what a secure enclave means, which is rigorous cryptographic security from the boot point all the way up to the software. Building systems that allow both parties to trust each other, I would say, you know, we're doing that, but no one has yet sort of perfected that because it's very complicated. But you can get close, and I think, as you said, it really depends on the use case. So for country to country, I think, if you can do distributed computation when you can, it's much better than having to have a trusted environment. But if you have large data requirements, it's inevitable. The other thing is that more and more people are using cloud resources, even if they don't need to, just because of the simplicity or the convenience. However, that raises another issue, who is truly got access to that data in those systems. So yeah, I don't know, do you want to add anything to that?
I think Rodrigo should answer that question also with Seonyoung.
Yeah, we'll hear from Rodrigo because his country case is an exemplar of one solution to this problem, where they've stood up Data Observatory as an organization that solves the problem. And we've got another question in the back, and Ryan may have some online. We've got 2 minutes left together, so these are speed questions. 1, 2, 3, Rodrigo, 20 seconds.
I can't do it in 20 seconds, but yeah. You need to have a framework. As simply as I've got like 15 more minutes, you need to have some standards in order to make it possible. And that's it. I don't have any more points to add to this response, because for me, and I was thinking about asking you guys, do you think that it's more bureaucratic, data visitations in legal aspects?
Can you clarify what you mean by bureaucratic? It's more of a policy question than a technology question? I actually think it's all about technology. I'm a technologist, sorry. But if you can prove mathematically that data is secure, if you can remove the risk of the input and you can protect the output, you don't need to have that. You can still have shared governance, which means we can both choose to unlock it with a key and agree to share the results. But computation could theoretically be done without trustless. And I think that's where we want to go.
That's an excellent answer. Ryan, you have a question in the back? Any online?
Yes.
We're going to keep you here in the room 3 more minutes, and then I promise I'll let you go to your lunch.
Hello. Yeah, very quickly. Richard FAIRIyz from ARDC. I was just thinking about this from the legal perspective. I was very excited about the point-to-point data exchange, but I'm just wondering about like the legal jurisdiction, if they're in different legal jurisdictions, and whether we need machine-readable law so that you might manipulate the consent or something, or have some kind of check, but we have to read the law from each of those different jurisdictions to figure out what the consequences are for the transfer.
I'm going to give a quick answer to that because we don't have much time, but in the AI Bill of Rights recommendation, you can see a review of the law at the global level, the regional level, the country level, and many state and municipality levels that we did as part of that report. And it helps you imagine the complexity of standing that up, but also watching it as it matures, because it's maturing really rapidly insofar as law can ever be rapid by virtue of the cases being brought to courts across the world.
Natalie, if I can add to that, within the CoData IDPC working group now, we have envisaged and pilot AI principles. And the idea, especially with the pilot principles, is that those principles will be integrated into the software, into the data systems themselves. And I think it's possible. So there's just really 5 principles in pilot to implement there, with the background coming from ethical, legal, social, envisaged principles there. So that's what we tried to do. We think nature is interested to publish this for us, and then also we have places to implement it as well. So I think we have some really solid now, like we have for fair data principles, care principles, trust principles. Now we can have principles also for AI, but that those principles will have to go into the legislation. We'll have to go, into the into the technology itself.
Ryan, do we have questions online?
Nothing.
Okay, then
one
we've
more.
got one more comment.
No. Maybe you're referring to responsibility, legal responsibility, or that's not your question?
Can you expand on that, Rodrigo?
Yeah, because I think that you have a point in international law. There's no agreements in this matter. So it's important that different institutions like UN, for instance, try to promote these kind of new approaches and try to incorporate responsibles as policymakers who are trying, or who are supposed to be the ones that apply these principles or these new technologies. But of course you need to institute somehow responsibles of managing information or how to use that kind of information in general aspects. So I don't know if I complement you.
I think that's a wonderful observation. I'll add to it, and then Madhav will summarize and we'll conclude. One of the things we're talking around is legal and policy pluralism, and it is a distinctive factor of the kind of environment these systems are operating in. So they're in a legalistic, pluralistic policy environment that demands attention to policy pluralism all the way down when you want to operate a system across borders. It's a tricky business for deployers and developers. Go for it. You can have the last word.
I was just going to add, we've got 2 policy experts at OpenMind. If you come chat to me, I can put you in touch with them. They'll definitely be answer those questions.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I know we're standing between you and lunch. Please visit with us during lunch, during the rest of the conference. Thank RDA and CodeData for bringing us together, and we'll see you at lunch and around the conference.